How y'all doing, ladies and gentlemen? It is TDT, the Developing Trader, coming at you with our weekly projection video of the first week in 2026. And I'm going to be doing some markups on the indexes. I also would like to start doing some of the Forex pairs. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to it today. I'm kind of stripped for time. I wanted to do something a little more elaborate, but as time go on, this will get better. I think in the future I could even do this on a live stream real quick. But for now, I'm just trying to get some traction going, trying to get some momentum. So right now we're gonna look at the DXY, the US dollar. We're gonna look at ES, S&P 500. We're gonna look at Dow Jones, and we're gonna look at the Nasdaq. Okay, so let's start with the dollar index here on a 3-month. Let's take a quick peek at a 6-month, being that it's a new year. 12 months, so this is interesting. If you saw my video from the New Year's video, you saw where we actually highlighted some of these gaps on the 12-month candle block where each of these candles is 12 months. So right now we're sitting in a gap and we close right at equilibrium on that gap. So that's something interesting to note and keep in mind as we go into this year. When you think about the geopolitical ground right now, I don't want to get into those type of topics, but it's just interesting looking at this price action with what's going on in the world right now. We move down into the 6-month chart. Okay, each candle is 6 months, and you see we recently had a reaction right here off of this gap. So price went up into it, rejected, makes another attempt back to the gap, rejects again. Now it fell into that gap, but it did break this swing here. Okay, so that would in some circumstances be seen as a break in market structure, but I just want to talk more about that exact price action, that move, because it's very common and I've been studying it a lot, because sometimes it can be an offset distribution or an offset accumulation. Okay, let's move into the 3-month chart here, and it looks a little more bearish looking at this chart here versus the 12-month. It looks like, it's sitting in a gap, but it may want to dig deeper into that gap, even if it was to have some bullish action this year. At this moment on this 3-month chart here, you can see it almost looks like institutional order flow entry drill right here, and it rejected, and it's staying here at that equilibrium line. Okay, so let's go into the monthly. To me, this is a bit bearish. It broke the market structure, is already gone up on the last 3 months, the last quarter, and taken liquidity right there and then rejected, and it's in this gap and in some other price action that I'm gonna leave unhighlighted for now. So it still looks bearish from the 3-month. Okay, that's what I'm saying there. It looks more bearish on the 3-month. Now here we have a consolidation on the monthly. You can see it's been consolidating here since June. So dollar has been in an overall consolidation. You see it goes down, it comes back, then it goes back down, takes the liquidity, goes back up, takes the liquidity. So very indecisive price action would make it hard to tell where it wants to go next. What I'm looking at on the monthly, me personally, is the way that we close this gap on the previous month right here. This is something that I would take a look at and see if and when, if it moves back into that area. I would expect that if it doesn't close it fully, we would have a further move down. Okay, it can still go up and fill that gap again, but this right here, until we get a close on this month, we're just gonna watch this gap. We're gonna see what happens as price moves into this gap over this month, if it can get into that gap. Okay, let's move into the weekly. Okay, on the weekly, we can see here this price action is very choppy in this area because it's been in consolidation that we can see from the monthly chart. So overall, dollar is in a consolidation right now, and it's just kind of, it's declining as of now since taking the liquidity at this point, but overall it's in a monthly consolidation. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind, perhaps take a note of that. Here on the daily, what we want to look at going into tomorrow is what kind of response we get when price opens. Right now you can see that it is in this gap. I would include this little area of price here where you can see just the wick, and price is still being held in here. So I want to see where we open up tomorrow and see if from that 3-month view, if price continues to fall. If it does, we'll be watching the liquidity right here if it sells off. But if it does push through and close above this gap, then through the week I would be looking to see if it can move further into that liquidity and into that gap. So during the midweek, we'll come back and take a look at what transpires. In here, it does look a bit more bearish, but we would need more information. This is what I'm seeing on Dixie right now. So let's move on to our next pair here. What did I do? Alrighty, and here we have the S&P 500. And remember that 12-month that I was just talking about on Dixie? So this is a version of it here on ES where it dips in and then it continues that bullish action. So that's where we're waiting to see if that happens over there. So here on the 6-month on ES, you can see the last time we dipped into one of these FEGs was in January for that yearly run last year. And here we are, 3-month chart, and price is now, I don't know, moving off an all-time high. Okay, closed the year pretty strong on ES. So we have a gap here, 3-month gap sitting below us. That price may want to revisit at some point. On the 1 month, not too much to talk about here. Ever since it comes up, it pulls back already. If we take a look at that pullback, it ever so likely drops into a gap that's very hard to see, but it's most definitely there. So you see even that small little tap right there. Take a look at that. Taps into that gap and we're off. And it looks pretty bullish. Looks pretty bullish. It's one thing that makes the indexes not look so bullish, and I'm gonna show that in a few minutes. So right now what I'm looking at going into this week is the way we're sitting in this gap here. It's a bit of a void in there. There is a small point where none of the candles are touching between this candle and that candle, but it does have a wick in the back here. So I do not believe that would be fully considered a void, but it is a very, what's the word? It's a word I want to use, but very thin. It's a very thin wick right in here. And you can see price dips into it and it does pull back into that gap on a weekly. So we want to see where price opens this week. Let's take a look at the daily. So we know that at this point we're sitting in this weekly gap, right? Price has dived a bit deeper. You can see on the daily there is a bigger gap here. That did it fully close? Yes, it fully closes that gap in between there. And let's see, there's also a gap here because we do cut through the candles over here. Gives us more information, and you can see price dips back into that as well. This is the same price action that's price moved in and sent this lower, this gap right here. So now it's above that gap and tapping in here, giving me more evidence that we could have some bullish action from this point. Although there is one thing that has me a bit concerned. So two things on this daily here. We already closed the gap above price right here, right? And in there could have been used to get a sell, okay? I'll talk about how we could do that on the blog more as the year goes on. We also closed this gap here. Any one of these gaps could have been used intraday in the past, but what I'm saying is all these things were very bearish, okay? But now we've entered this weekly gap. So this week we want to see if price wants to continue going lower, and if it does, the next liquidity would on a weekly chart is at this point here, at this wick. On a lower chart you will see more liquidity points before here, but on the weekly that's the next liquidity point, okay? Next liquidity zone, if you will, okay? So in my belief, this week we will see, I think we're gonna get some bullish action out of this S&P 500 index, and it may push up again. If it goes for another high, we will see the strength in the move, but as it comes into these areas through the week, I will monitor price. So this right here, this is a hot zone to me when I'm trading through the week. If it gets back here, this area in price right here, this is a hot zone in my mind, right here and also right here. So I want to see how price returns to these areas, and we'll note these and follow these through the week. So that's what I'm seeing right now on the ES. There's a lot more, but I don't want to make it super complicated. You know, it's probably already very complicated, and some people probably like, what the hell are you doing? Just let them cook. Let them cook. Yeah, so let's move on to our next index. All right, and here we go. This is the Nasdaq, my baby. That nasty Nas, right? So yeah, so time is running up on me actually, guys. So this is going to be the last one I'm going to do. So it's just going to be Dixie, ES, and NQ this week. I'll try to get more done, duty calls. I have to head on do some things, and this video takes forever to render, okay? So I want to get this started because I really want to get the videos posted in a good timeline, okay? I really want to try and be mostly consistent here. So join me as we make this attempt. So you see this move here again. We'll talk about this even though it was on that New Year's video. What I was talking about with Dixie, where it comes in, taps the consequent encroachment of the FVG right here and takes off, right? Let's look at the 6 month and see what we got. Interesting enough here, you can see if we were to go and look at the other indexes with this, that would be considered a type of SMT. And I have a blog post that I am cooking up right now, giving you very intricate details about what I have discovered about SMT divergence. Because a lot of people talk about SMT and they talk about a lot of things, and a lot of things I don't know if they know what they're talking about because it's not what I have seen in the data, okay? So I only speak on what I have seen, and on the blog I plan to have like examples upon examples. It'll be a place to get your reticular activator systems going, you know, because you need to see these things, you know, especially for the very new students. You know, for the advanced students, you got it, you know, you good. But anyway, I'm going off track. I'm running out of time. So 6 month chart here, very bullish. I think we got a little gap in here that it tapped as well, just like it did on the ES. You see that little gap right there, ever so slightly created a gap right there that was traded into. Let's move into a 3 month. Once again, not too much to see here. We got gap right here that price will probably begin moving into at some point on the monthly. Not too much to talk about, just like the ES. So let's hit our daily and our weekly and see what we're looking like here. So now, interesting enough, we were just looking at that gap on ES, right? And you saw that we're sitting in that gap, but the Nasdaq has already filled the gap that is on its chart. So on ES, this gap, price is sitting in this gap, but on Nasdaq, you can see here it's already moved through the gap. And if you look closely, the liquidity isn't too far away. I'm just saying, it isn't too far away, because you could come down here on a daily. Let's see here. Yeah, Nasdaq looks like it may want to touch that liquidity. I'm just saying, but we got a gap in here that I want to watch through the week and see what's happening with this. It already tapped into it once, because it may want to get that liquidity, but it may not want to get it this week. Okay, I'm not that good where I can call it through the week. I gotta like get in, get more data. As I see changes, I follow those changes. I'm just being honest with you guys. I'm trying to get better. This is the developing trader, not the developed and master trader. You know, y'all know where to go to find that. It's not here. This is if you want to get in the dongo with a guy who's in there working and trying to get better every day. That's what this is about. So let's just be clear. So even watching videos, you may see the creator come out and say that something that I call is incorrect. Like I saw him do that earlier this week, and I was like, yeah, it's cool, you know, because we're gonna get it wrong sometimes. And I think sometimes he creates new stuff, and it's like, well, if we don't know that, how are we supposed to know that? You dig what I'm saying? But anyway, neither here nor there. We can only work with what we got. I'm talking too much. So I'm looking at this here on Nasdaq. I want to see what it does in this area. There's another gap. Like, it's a lot of gaps in here. I don't know, is this November? It's just a ton of gaps in this area that it's been creating ever since coming up for this new high, creating all this sparse price action in here and here. And then it created a lot of gaps that we're now moving back into. So I do believe, even with, I know that, all right, I believe that ES may go for another high, but this is the thing that makes me feel like it may not. As you could see, Nasdaq has not made a new high, although the ES has made a new high and the Dow Jones has made a new high. Nasdaq has failed to do that. That is a sign of weakness. It has also taken all of this liquidity here and tapped into this gap very handsomely, unable to get the consequent encroachment of that gap, but definitely tapped into it and started to sell off. Okay, at this point we've already closed those gaps, we've gone back up and it's pulled back from those gaps. So one thing I'm almost certain we're going to get is taking out this daily candle right here. I do believe we're going to tap that. If it goes and hit the bottom, I would want to see how it reacts after tapping into the low of December 19th, which was a Friday. Okay, that's what I'm looking at this week. Can I be totally wrong and maybe it's sitting in this gap right here and getting ready to make another leg up? You see it's in that gap and it hasn't closed it. Although it's closed this gap, this is where it gets complicated. This is where we're here to learn. Okay, so we want to see what happens out of this gap, this variety of gaps that price is sitting in right now. Okay, so on the daily, I'm a bit indecisive right now because Nasdaq looks like it wants to take a deeper dive and perhaps go for this liquidity below the market, but the S&P 500, it's not giving me that vibe, if you will. The technicals seem a bit different, so I want to see where we open this week, if we have a down close or up close, and I'll note that on the blog, and then we'll see what price actually does through this week. But I am a bit more indecisive because of the SMT on the highs, and then the structure on ES looks like it could be a bit bullish, whereas Nasdaq looks like it's much more bearish. So it's easy to get in line with price intraday, but it's good to learn how to follow these longer term charts. This is where the money is made, I promise you. I've been like a scalper this entire time, but I see the potential in what I'm missing by being a scalper, and that's why I'm trying to just develop my long-term vision, you know. So that's what we're here to do. So I'm gonna end it here because I have to go. I hope this was good. If y'all enjoyed it, let me know. If you didn't, let me know. It's all good. I'm still gonna do it anyway, whether you like it or not. and hopefully I get better at doing it. So this has been our first weekly projection, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for tuning in. You guys have a great day. I love you. Have a blessed 2026, and I'll see you in the charts, baby. TDTI.